Okay, so it is Friday 17th, 2016 at 1300 hours my time, or Vancouver time. And this is Constable Mackay with the Burnaby RCMP, reg number 57043. And we have a Desiree Capuano. Is that how you pronounce it? Capuano?
Capuano.
Capuano.
Very close.
We're just doing a statement by way of Skype. She's in Arizona. So, what I would like to do, I'll just explain to you that our investigation focuses on some of the offenses from up here. But what I would like to do is start, and I don't know how much time you have, but I'd like to start with basically an overview of your relationship. I understand you previously were in a relationship with who we know as Patrick Fox.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about your relationship with him?
He was Richard Reese. We met in January of 2000. We were in less than a 2-year relationship, and he's the father of my son, my oldest son. Okay. We separated in 2001. He took my son for 9 years, moving between California and Arizona. I didn't know where he was. I didn't know where my son was. 2007, he was arrested by the Phoenix Police Department for forging checks, check fraud, and an unregistered firearm. They discovered that he was a Canadian citizen. During his exit interview, he lied to the federal judge, told them that he was born in the United States. He said he was born in Ontario, California, and that both of his parents were American citizens. Again, this is all under Richard Reese's name. Judge found out that he was lying, and he was sentenced to 2 years. And so he was detained in Arizona from 2007 until 2011. In 2011, he was deported. That's when I found out where my son was, who I now have full custody of. He was deported in September of 2011. He immediately returned to the United States and took up residence with Liz Munoz in Los Angeles, where he lived for the next year. In 2012, January of 2013, he was arrested and deported for a second time. In March of 2013, he was arrested and deported for a third time. And in June of 2014, he started using the identity of Patrick Fox. At that point, he made it his life's goal to destroy my life. And he started a campaign of harassment, including building a website, maintaining a website, pretending to be me, accessing information by pretending to be our child on social media, posting pictures of my house, my home address, my phone number, contacting my employers, people I work with, pretending to be me, trying to get me fired. Would send me emails, multiple emails every day telling me how horrible I was, how I was white trash, and he was trying to get me to commit suicide. He told me at one point he would kill me if he could get away with it, and he was going to try to hire someone to have sex with me so he could get pictures to put on his website. He would send me updates on the website, things that he was doing. In October of 2015, I obtained an order of protection against him, and that was upheld recently by the Superior Court of Arizona. After the order of protection was initially granted, he continued with the harassment, updating blog posts. He went on international news and said that his life's goal was to destroy me. And that he confirmed he would absolutely shoot me if he could get away with it. Within the last month, he's been calling my house from phone numbers within the United States, 2 from California, 1 from Arizona. He's told my son that he has shipped his stuff to Los Angeles told my son that he was planning on moving back. Continuously tells me about how he has guns, how he's allowed to own guns, how he goes to the shooting range all the time. He shows me pictures of where he crosses the border through a park, and he taunts me, telling me that there's no authorities present when he crosses the border, and he does it all the time, that he's constantly in the United States. He's sent me a picture of a birth certificate from Florida stating that he uses this identity whenever he feels like it. I have an email from him where he stated that he uses Patrick Fox or Richard Reese whenever it suits him best for whichever purpose he needs it for. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for telling me all that. I'd like to go back to the beginning. You talked about your relationship starting in 2000.
Yes.
Can you tell me about where and when you guys met?
Yes, we met at a bar in Phoenix. I was 19, he was 26. I knew that he was in the country illegally, but I was really young and naive. And he was a very angry person at the time. Yeah, it was in Arizona.
Okay. And can you tell me about the relationship? How did it progress in terms of, where you guys were living and,
His goal has always been to live in Los Angeles. That's the epitome of where all the good things are. And so we moved to Los Angeles and lived out there for the majority of the relationship. I became pregnant in the summer of 2000 and had complications. I was in a very bad car accident in Los Angeles, and at 4 months pregnant, I started hemorrhaging. And we eventually moved back to Arizona, where my mother lived, because I was in and out of the hospitals. And our son was actually born severely premature. He was born 1 week into the 6th month, so he was only 2 pounds, 3 ounces when he was born. Richard never went to go see him in the hospital, wanted nothing to do with the child, told me he didn't want anything to do with the child. He would degrade me and talk down to me when I would go visit the baby in the hospital. And at one point he was convinced that we needed to give the child up for adoption, but only if we could get money for him. He wanted nothing to do with the child at all. And we got into an argument in the summer of 2001, and he basically told me he was mad at me for not letting the baby die during birth and doing what I needed to do to keep him alive. And so I took my son and I moved from Los Angeles and I moved to Arizona with the child and my belongings, and I moved in with my mom. I had gone on vacation to Florida, and my mom told me to leave my son with her while I went, and so I did. But he found out that I was gone, and he went to Arizona to my mother's house, and he took my son, brought him back to California, filed for custody, and said I abandoned him. And I didn't see him again for 9 years.
Okay. So I'm just taking some notes in my notebook here.
Okay. During the course of the relationship, he would get hired on with companies by providing a fake social security number, and then he would work for them for a little while and then quit. Toward the end of the relationship, he had taken to agreeing to job offers from places that were out of the state, and he would get the relocation money from them, work for them for a couple weeks, and then quit. And because all of it was under a false social security number, they could never trace it back. So.
Okay. So just so we can narrow down in terms of where you guys lived, from what I understand, it sounds like you moved out to Los Angeles, lived there for most of the time, and then moved back once. Could you kind of give me it doesn't have to be an exact timeline, but just trying to think, I would like to know what cities you guys lived in during the course of your relationship.
It was only ever Phoenix and Los Angeles.
Thanks.
hmm And he only ever agreed to move back to Phoenix because money was tight. But he never really wanted to. He wants to be in Los Angeles.
Okay. So just so I have this clear, you met in Phoenix, and shortly after you guys moved to Los Angeles, lived there with him for approximately how long?
6 months.
And then you guys moved back to Arizona?
Yes. And we lived in Arizona for about another 6 months.
And then
back to LA.
And then back to LA, and then at which point you you and your son left and lived with your mother.
Correct.
And after that point in time, was there any other time that you lived with him or were in a relationship with him?
No, that was the end of the relationship. It ended in October of 2001.
Can you tell me about his? Actually, we'll just back up for a second, just so we are clear on who we're talking about. Can you tell me all of the names or who you know him to be?
Sure. When I was pregnant with our son, he actually introduced me to his father over the phone, and had one of his half-brothers come live with us. So he was born Ricky Steve Reese in Sudbury, Ontario. His dad is Steve Reese, who lives in Toronto still. His mother, her maiden name was Pippin, but her name is Peggy, and I believe that she changed it to Sampona. So I believe it's Peggy Sampona now.
Okay. And how do you spell Reese again?
Riess. That's the last name of my son.
Okay.
He did not like his birth name, and so he went by Richard Steve Reese. I have his birth certificate. That's who he is. I don't know if it was 2011 or 2012, but one of those 2 years while he was in the United States, he went by the name of Morgan Roth, Roth. I have an email from him from that email address, Morgan Roth. And then in 2014 was when he started using the name Patrick Henry Fox. And I have hundreds of emails from Richard Reese, and you can see the exact time that the email address went from Richard Reese to Patrick Fox.
And what's his date of birth?
11/24/73. It's the same for both identities.
Yeah, some of the information I understand that you've probably already provided it, just because I am doing somewhat more of an official statement. I'm asking for some of these details just so we have it on record.
Sure.
Okay. And who did you say his father went by?
Steve Reese.
It was just Steve Reese. Okay.
Yeah, and I still talk to Steve. He's really a wonderful gentleman, and is more than willing to do whatever is needed to prove that he's his father.
Okay. And who's his mother?
Peggy Sampona. Maiden name Pippin. And I believe she lives in Vancouver. Last I knew, she lived in Vancouver.
Okay. Okay, so if you could tell me during the course of your relationship with, how do you usually refer to him now as Patrick,
Richard.
or just as Richard? Okay, so for the purposes of this interview, we'll refer to him as Richard throughout this interview. So with Richard, can you tell me about during the relationship what he was like?
He was awful. The 2 years that we were together, he was very mentally and emotionally abusive. He told me at one point after I had the baby that I had turned into the type of woman that used to cheat on their husbands with him. He would tell me things like, now that I had baggage, meaning the child, that no other guy would ever want me. Browbeating, putting me down, just constantly made me feel like I was not worth anything at all. Yeah, it was not good. He had very few interests. He really only ever talked about programming. That was basically all he ever talked about, was programming, writing code.
Okay.
Very few friends. Antisocial, didn't get along with people. Had a tendency to be rude and mean, and would use people for whatever he needed to gain from them. He didn't believe in relationships. He refused to say, he doesn't believe in emotion. He's never actually said I love you to his son, ever. And he's been trying to teach his son that relationships and emotions are made up and imagined and not real. So clearly love was never actually part of a relationship. That was never a term of why we were together.
Okay. Okay. Can you tell me about any a history of abuse from him?
Physical? No. He never physically abused me. He's kind of a coward when it comes to that. He likes to hide and do his damage. He likes to do the type of damage that you can't see the scars, or he can't get caught because of the abuse that he's doing. And so he's also kind of a small guy. But there was no physical abuse during the 2 years that we were together. It's a shame that that's the only kind of abuse that counts.
Yeah. And what about emotional and verbal?
Constant. From 2011 until 2014, I have over 1,000 emails from him that will sum up basically the type of communication that I've received from him. It's really hard. It's a lot of insulting and I don't know what you want to call it. It's, you're white trash, you're nothing, you're not a good mom, your son doesn't respect you, he doesn't love you, why do you continue to try to pretend like you're a good person? Why do you pretend like you could even be a parent? You're not even a real parent. He loves somebody else more than he loves you. I've told him all along, and I've taught him that you're white trash and that you're not going to amount to anything. You're just a drug user. And I sit here and I count the 50 different ways that we laugh at you and make fun of you, and it's just constant. It's just constant every day, multiple emails about this. It's just every day.
And can you tell me about what was that present during the relationship that you guys had?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell me about that at the time that you guys were in the relationship?
It almost broke me. It led to pretty bad postpartum depression, and I was sad, and I was depressed, and I really had very little self-worth. during the relationship. I actually went to see my mom on a vacation towards the end of the relationship without him, and that's when I realized how bad I'd gotten. And that's when I realized I couldn't stay there. I couldn't stay in the relationship with him anymore. I couldn't keep doing that.
Okay.
So that's why I left.
Okay.
There's one email in particular that he sent me in 2015 where it's a very angry and verbally abusive email with a lot of swearing, and that I'm a worthless piece of shit repeatedly in many different ways of how you can say that.
Okay. Now, can you tell me about what Richard does for work, what he did for work in your relationship, and what he did afterwards?
He does the same thing that he's always done. He writes code. He's a C++ software programmer, and he makes a lot of money doing it. He is very savvy with computers. He currently has a business that he owns, which I believe is how he's been getting jobs. He's been doing contract through his business. So, and the emails that were sent to me, the 1,000 emails were sent from Patrick Fox, but they were sent from his business. So
Okay.
they were sent from SolarOnyx.com.
Solar Onyx?
Yes. And this is a company that is registered in Canada, and it's also registered in Los Angeles. And the address on file for the company in Los Angeles belongs to Liz Munoz. It's her home address.
Okay. Is Solar Onyx, is that O-N-E-X?
Y.
Y-X.
O-N-Y-X.
Okay. Now, can you tell me about any threats that you received from him?
Richard's attitude toward me is very angry and very bitter. Every email that he sends has tones of aggression in them. And one email he sent me in particular, he told me that during a conversation that he had with our son asked him if he would ever shoot me. And Richard told him that he would absolutely, with no qualms, shoot me if the punishment for that were not life in jail. That is how much he hates me, and that is how much he'd wish to see me gone.
And so this information, how did you find out about this information?
He sent it to me in an email.
Okay.
Along with another email where he said that multiple emails telling me that his entire goal in life, his mission in life, his purpose is to destroy me, to break me, and either kill me or get me to a point where I kill myself, or until I'm homeless and destitute and have nobody to turn to, and he will not stop until that happens, ever. And I believe him.
The email that he sent you that referenced the conversation with your son about not having any issues about killing you, when was that sent to you? I believe it was referenced earlier in another report, but I just want to know when it was sent to you.
It was sent December 2014, I believe.
Okay.
And again, I mentioned earlier another email he sent me. He said in the email that he was going to go ahead and divulge another part of his plan to me, and that was to hire someone to have sex with me so that he could get pictures for his website. He also told me that he has my social security number, that he plans on putting it up on billboards, and that his goal is not only to destroy me, but to make sure that everybody around me knows all of the things that he thinks about me, so that I have nobody to turn to.
They're all gone. I'm just doing an interview over Skype. Thanks. Okay. Any other threats that you received from him?
I think that's it.
Have you tell me about any threats that you've received, either talking to him on the phone or in person or anything like that?
He on the website that he hosts, that has all of my information on it. He also has the address of my home, and he has a map to my house. This website has a lot of racist remarks, and making it seem like I'm a white supremacist and a racist. When I mentioned to him that that's the home where his son lives, and that could potentially be dangerous, he responded with an intention that if somebody came to my house looking to hurt me because of the information that was on the website, that they would probably leave the kids alone. But regardless, nobody would be able to hold him accountable for it, so he didn't really care. He's given the impression on more than one occasion that that is one of his goals with the website, to incite violence from it. And by stating where I live on there, anybody that would want to cause violence would know exactly where to go to find me.
Okay.
He also decided to start attacking my youngest son, who is 12 years old. And so he has all of my 12-year-old's information on the same website that, again, has a link to my house, a map to my house, and the home address. And he's got pictures and video and writing saying really awful things about my 12-year-old son. One of the pictures is actually of my son when he was 6 years old in his underwear. And it's up on the website. So any pedophile that wants to go there, see it, totally has access and knows where I live.
Okay. Tell me about a time when he came to your house and confronted you or anything like that.
He has not.
Okay.
He has not that I know of.
Okay.
He is not at my house.
Does he?
I saw him in person in 2011 for custody hearings. And because the child was present, we were civil to each other. But he had not started much of the harassment or attacking with the emails and the verbal and the aggression at that point. That didn't really start until 2012. After that, I didn't see him.
Okay.
He has called my house numerous times from phone numbers in the United States, though. One of them was actually a phone number in Tucson, Arizona, and that was within the last month.
Okay. Do you happen to have those numbers available? Can you get them?
I sent you the email with the phonage. Yeah, we can forward those to you in an email.
Okay.
So you have.
That's fine. If you don't have them right now, we can. If you forward them to me, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, you have the Tucson number?
Yeah.
The Tucson in California? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, we can send you 2 out of the 3 numbers that he called from.
Okay.
I'm pulling them up and sending them to you right now.
Okay. So, if we could also just back up to I just want to focus on the custody battle issues. If you could just give me a timeline of how the custody battle went. I understand, you went back to your mother's house. You ended up going to Florida, and then you came back.
We ended up with joint custody in February of 2002. The judge ordered joint custody. Time was supposed to be evenly split. At that point, I was in Florida and he was in California, and the judge ordered that we had to fly the child back and forth between those 2 states every 2 weeks. So I took him for the first visit. He took him back after 2 weeks, and then I couldn't afford to go get him again. And by the time I had the money to go get him, Richard was gone. I had no idea where he was. Phone number wouldn't work, email wouldn't work, address, nobody was at the address. So he was just gone with my son. And in 2011, when we went back into the custody battle, my son said that he wanted to live with Richard and he wanted to visit with me. And so I agreed to let Richard have primary physical custody, but we had joint legal custody. And for 2011 and 2012, that's how it remained. But Richard took him back to court many times, trying to get all visitation removed, trying to get custody taken away from me, and going after child support. He was trying to get me for child support. I fought each of the times that he tried to change it, and the judge never ruled in his favor on any of those. Well, let me back up really quick. In 2011, while he was in jail, I took my son from this lady, Liz Munoz, who he had given my son to raise while he was in jail. So in 2007, he gave my son to Liz Munoz in Los Angeles and had her raise him. And so in 2011, when I found out where he was, I took my son from Liz. When Richard got let out in 2011 and went back into Los Angeles, he filed something called a UCCJEA, which said that the home state of the child was California, not Arizona. And the judge agreed, and the judge made me return Gabriel to him in California. And that's when we started the custody battle. So again, we had joint legal custody. He had primary physical custody. He kept trying to take it away. He kept interfering with all of the visitations. There were times where he would call the airlines and change flights that I had made. He would cancel flights so that I would have to drive out to California. He messed with all of the visitations until at last in November or October of 2012, he was actually petitioning the court to allow him to take Gabriel back to Canada with him because he couldn't get a job in the United States. And while I wanted him to be deported back to Canada, I did not want him to take my son. And so I called a tip line, and I told them that he was here. And while my son was with me for holiday over winter break, they arrested him. They arrested Richard and deported him back to Canada. At that point, I got sole custody of our son. And in 2013, Richard was kind of quiet, I assume because he didn't really have any money. He was up in Canada, and he was trying to get this whole Patrick Fox identity thing going. later half of 2013, 2014, and 2015, he took me back to court, I think 7 times to try to get custody taken away again. And finally, in April of this year, 2016, the judge not only upheld that I keep custody, all physical and legal custody of our son, but any visitation will be determined by me. Any phone conversations will be determined by me. And basically, I'm in control of anything that happens between him and his son. Richard did not like that, and his response was to go on a rampage against my youngest son.
Okay.
He basically, he's told Gabriel many times in the past that he's basically using him as a pawn to get to me. And so he would convince my son that I was a worthless mother, that I was nobody that he would have to love or respect. Gabriel feared me for a long time. Didn't believe anything that I'd say. Had just been conditioned basically to believe that I was the worst person on the face of the earth. So I've been working really hard to get past all of that with my son.
Yeah.
And it's been a challenge.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I'm tracking with you in terms of the timeline of events. So, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this here. I'm just going to try and summarize briefly to get right where this custody issue goes. So, in 2002, you guys were given joint custody. And that's why you were in Florida at the time, and the judge ordered that Gabriel had to be flown back and forth. Now, at that time, was that after the incident where he took Gabriel from your mother's house?
No. Yes, it was. Sorry.
Okay.
Yes, it was.
So that was after that, and then you had said that you weren't able to keep up with the payments and flying back and forth, and when you got back to Arizona, he was gone. Can you just explain that?
No, I was still in Florida. I actually stayed in Florida until I moved in 2008.
Okay.
I moved from Florida to Arizona in 2008. I was in Florida the whole time. Which is why I couldn't afford the plane tickets. It wasn't like it was, $100 round trip plane ticket from Arizona to Los Angeles. It was a $300 plane ticket each way from Florida to California.
Okay.
And Gabriel was a year old at the time, which means somebody would have to fly with him. So it was 2 plane tickets each way.
Okay. So at the time, so just so I understand this, basically from 2002 to 2008, you guys had joint custody. Was he living in Arizona at that time, or? No,
well, I didn't know where he was. He was going back and forth between Los Angeles and California.
Okay. And you were in Florida at the time. And my understanding is for the better portion of that time, Gabriel was in his custody. And then, sorry, I'm just looking through my notes here. He ended up in jail and gave Gabriel over to Liz to be taken care of.
Yes.
Approximately what year was that, sorry?
That was 2007.
And then you found out that he was there in 2009, and
I didn't know who Gabriel was. I just found out that Richard was incarcerated in 2000.
Okay. So then we start the issue of you ended up getting Gabriel from California, and then
in 2011
he filed.
The home state document.
And what year did he file the home state document?
That was 2011. 2011 was when he was released, and he was deported.
Okay.
But he says that he was never technically deported because he wasn't walked across the border. He was left in Washington State and handed a deportation paper, so he wasn't technically deported.
Okay. And so, was this the first time that he was deported in 2011?
Yeah. In 2011, that was the first time he was deported.
Okay. Okay. So then you end up having a custody battle because he's trying to get Gabriel to come to Canada, and in April this year, you end up winning full custody and basically control over the custody.
Yeah, I got it initially in 2013, in January of 2013, but April of this year was when it was confirmed that I have full say over everything that happens. Because January of 2013 was the second time he was deported.
Okay.
In July of 2015 was when I first contacted the RCMP and filed my first case with them regarding the harassment. That was when I put my home address up on the website, pictures of my house, a map to my house, the bus route that goes by my house, my home phone number, my email address.
So you described that the harassment starting in, sorry, was it 2012 or 2014?
14.
2014. So tell me about that. How, I mean, you were talking about harassment, there being harassment before, but in 2014, you said that that's when everything really started. What do you mean by that? Tell me what that means.
So in 2014, it was early, like March or April, he hacked into a LinkedIn profile that I had and he got the names of everybody that I worked with, that I was connected with. He set up a secondary profile that said I was a stripper and a meth head and I drank beer, and had it set up so that everybody that I was connected with through work was actually starting to connect to the secondary profile. And I worked with LinkedIn to get it taken down, which they eventually did take it down. But at that point, he had the email addresses of everybody that I was connected with, and it was a lot of people, all the way up to CEOs, vice presidents. I'd been with the company since 2008, so at that point, I had been there for a long time. Once that profile was taken down, he started sending out emails pretending to be me to all of the people on that list. Everybody that I had been connected with on LinkedIn, he started sending them emails pretending to be me. In the emails, it would include bits of email conversations that he and I had had, things that he thought was incriminating evidence against me, things that would make me look bad to my coworkers and peers. And he would send that out to them along with a link to the website. And it was the first time I ever found out about the website. When the first couple emails went out, security had to be contacted at my job. He was blocked. The website was blocked. They did everything they could, but he figured out the email convention of where I work, and so he sent out a second. It's not even a second. It was like a third or fourth email to my company, and this one reached over 600 people that I worked with, with email content and descriptions of the entire custody battle, emails that we had gone through back and forth, where he was stating that I was fighting for Gabriel, but Gabriel didn't even want to be with me. And he included my income and expense declaration, which I had to provide to the court. And so he included that on this email to over 600 people, a bunch of other information. And so at work, I would just start getting these random emails talking to me about how I should just let him have Gabriel and I shouldn't be fighting, and it really seems like this is what Gabriel wants, but I had no idea what the situation was at all. Then he sent out an email to the board of directors of my company, and Well, it said, I smoke pot, and there's not a fucking thing you can do about it. Signed, my name. And at that point, he would start sending me emails talking to me about how many people were going to the website, how many hits it was getting. He would show me graphs and charts of spikes of people going to the website. He would talk to me about how he was going to tweak it so that whenever you Googled for my name, this website was the first thing that would pop up. The pictures that are on the website, he actually created a Facebook profile pretending to be Gabriel, and went into Gabriel's Facebook profile, and that's how he got the pictures for the website, because I was friends on Facebook with my son, and I didn't know that it was Richard that was actually behind it. And so he would use Gabriel to get information about me, about what was going on, and then he'd put that stuff on the website. He was basically just doing everything that he could to get me fired. And that was basically where it started.
Okay. And what was the results of what happened when he did that with the emailing the 600 people? And obviously, there was you receiving emails from your coworkers and everything like that. What ended up happening as a result of that?
Nothing at the time. I was actually let go last year, September of 2015. It was unrelated. They were going through reduction in force, and I was part of the layoffs. Since then, I had a job offer on the table, including a start date, and the offer was revoked because of the website. They could not take the risk of hiring me and employing me with the website and the things that he's doing. And so that job was gone.
And when was that?
2 weeks ago. I've had people email me. I've had people call my house with threats and disgusting things because all of it's public.
What sort of, when you say threats, what do you mean by that? Like, what sort of things have they said in the past? Or
one phone call, they left a message and they said something like, "You want to get fucked in the ass? I'll fuck you in the ass." Another one is like, "You're a total piece of shit. You should die." Things like that.
okay. So obviously you've talked a little bit about this website. You found out about it after he started emailing to people at your work. Tell me about the website.
The website is DesireeCapuano.com. The website is my name. It started out with all of the information that he had because we were in a custody battle, and so documentation had to be provided to the court, and he had to get a copy of all of that documentation, so he put it all up on the website. All of the emails that had gone back and forth between him and I, between lawyers, everything, every form of communication was up on the website. The pictures that he got through our son's Facebook account, put up on the website. He got, I was arrested at one point in 2011. He put mugshot. He put the recording of me talking to the police up there. Every court hearing that he's recorded, he's put up there. And all of it is written pretending to be me. All of it is in first person, talking like it is me on the website. Like it's mine. I've had people walk up to me and tell me, they don't really understand why I would create a website like that, and I have to tell them that it's not me. That's not me.
Yeah.
It's very foul. There's a lot of awful things that are said on it. And if you Google for my name, not only is the website the first thing that comes up, but there are keywords like meth head and child abuser and narcissist that show up next to my name. It's a very elaborate website. He also has every contact that I was connected with on Facebook up on the website. He has posts about my parents up on the website, talks about them, talks about my friends. And he's taken to doing blog posts now. He says that the website is for informational purposes, and it's so that everybody can know what an awful person I am.
Just taking some notes.
Sure.
Okay. The 600 people that he emailed, who were those people? Not by name, obviously, but generally, who were those people?
I worked for a company called Apollo, and they owned the University of Phoenix. I don't know if you've heard of it. They're an online school.
Mm-hmm.
So part of the 600 people were individuals that worked for Apollo, and a lot of them, the majority of them, were people that worked for University of Phoenix. And I didn't know any of the people that worked for University of Phoenix that he sent it to. I don't know how he was able to get the list of people. I don't know, but it was sent.
Okay.
He also had a Google Plus account taken out in my name, targeted from the 20-mile radius around my home.
Sorry, say that again.
Google Plus. He took out a Google Plus account. He had one set up that was targeted for a 20-mile radius around my house. So anybody, Google Ads, he took out Google Ads also.
Yeah.
So anybody that went on the internet would see the website, or they would see a link to the website. Also, he monitors where I might potentially be getting jobs at. I believe he might be sending them resumes pretending to be me. He had an Indeed profile pretending to be me, so that he could prevent me from getting a job.
How do you think he's monitoring your job application or job searches?
He knows what I do for a career, and so he goes through the jobs that are available in my area, and then he looks for the ones that would be a fit with my credentials. Okay. He found out about the job that I got the offer for because they actually went to the website when they Googled my name, and he saw traffic coming from that school or from that company, and so he went onto their website and he found the jobs that they had available, and he saw that some of them would be a fit for me, and so he started blogging about them on the website, which was one of the key reasons they revoked the offer. They revoked it solely because of the website, but partly because they were already on the website.
Mm. Okay. Let's try to think where we go next here. You're a U.S. citizen. Have you ever been to Canada?
I am a U.S. citizen, and yes, I have been to Canada.
Okay. When was the last time you were here?
I was 9 years old.
Okay.
I lived in Seattle for about 6 years when I was a kid.
Tell me about any mental illness he has.
He's never been diagnosed with any mental illness, as far as I know. But I don't see how anybody that's in their sane mind would do the kind of things that he's done with no remorse. And just, he believes things that are so far removed. He's tried to convince me that I didn't meet his father. He's tried to convince me that he was never Richard Reese. He's tried to convince me of things that I was there for. It's like he comes up with this thing in his head, and then that's just all there is to it. And I don't. He scares me.
Mm-hmm. So, sorry, what were you gonna say?
He scares me.
So, along those lines, obviously he scares you. Do you fear for your safety?
Yes.
And why do you fear for your safety?
Because he does not abide by any of the laws or rules that are set down. He believes that he's above them, or that he can get out of them, no matter what he does. I believe that if he comes back in the country, he'll figure out a way to be here without anybody knowing that he's here. I've watched him do it before, and he's had unregistered firearms in the United States before. I know he owns guns up in Canada, and he's been practicing shooting them. And I don't think it would take him anything to show up and hide behind a bush. And I really feel like he hates me enough and despises me enough that he would absolutely take the shot if he had it. And if nobody knows where he is and he's in the United States, it will be far too easy for him to do that.
Okay.
And clearly that border between these two countries means nothing to him.
So you mentioned that he's illegally crossed into the U.S. What knowledge do you have of that? Like, how do you know about that?
Well, the first time, he was actually convicted of perjury and sentenced, and then deported. The second time, immigration actually called me to tell me that they had him in custody and they were deporting him. The third time, he was actually at court in Los Angeles for a hearing that he thought was going to happen for custody. That hearing was actually off calendar, and he didn't know that. And so I got a call from the court saying that he was there. So I called a field agent who arrested him and deported him again. And then this is the fourth time.
Okay.
And keep trying to tell people he's just going to keep coming back. And he thinks that this Patrick Fox identity is going to let him do whatever he wants because it has no criminal record. Also, he's been told to stop with the harassment, and he's been told to stop trying to hurt me and to leave me alone multiple times, and by multiple different law enforcement agencies, and he absolutely refuses.
Okay.
He just doesn't listen at all.
You talked about him having unlicensed firearms. Can you tell me about that?
When he was arrested in 2007 in Phoenix, Arizona, he had an unregistered firearm.
And how did you know about that?
It's on the police report. And when he was deported, he called Gabriel, he called my son, and told him that they took the gun, but they let him keep the ammunition.
Did you ever see that gun or talk to him about it?
No. No. My mother did, but I did not.
Tell me about any other weapons that he may have access to.
As far as I know, it's just guns. However, I know that getting any kind of unregistered firearm would not be difficult for him to do in the United States. Have you guys found the firearms that he had up there? If not, they might already be in the United States.
No, we have not found the firearms.
You might want to check Liz Munoz, because she's been talking to him, and he told Gabriel he shipped his stuff to LA.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that once we finish the interview. We can talk a little bit further about that.
Okay.
So, actually, that's actually something I wanted to ask about further. Liz, do you know the spelling of her name?
Yeah, it's Liz, and her last name is Munoz, Munoz.
And do you know how old she is?
Late 30s, early 40s. I have her address and her phone number.
Do you have it there?
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to just go ahead and give it to me?
406 and a half East Lincoln Street, Carson, California. Not sure of the zip code. 90745.
Okay.
That's where he was living when he was picked up the second time that he was deported.
Okay. And obviously you've talked about her a little bit with regards to Gabriel being left there and him being in contact with her. What do you know about Liz?
She's actually in the country illegally also. So the help that she provides to Richard is limited. She doesn't want to get her family into trouble, but she will do anything that Richard asks her to do.
Are they in a relationship?
As far as he has said, they have never been in a relationship. She apparently worked at the daycare where Gabriel was when he was a toddler, and she fell in love with Gabriel, became friends with Richard, and the three of them were, happy little family out there in Los Angeles until at some point in like 2005 or something, he moved with Gabriel back to Arizona. I don't know. I wasn't there for it, but she basically just does everything that he asks.
Okay.
And says, she has been calling my house with increased frequency over the last 2 weeks. She told Gabriel on the phone yesterday that she's been in contact with Richard.
What's the nature of the calls when she phones you?
Between her and Gabriel, or between her and Richard?
Well, when she phones your house, what happens?
She just leaves a message, and I tell my son, and he calls her back, and then my son tells me that, she's just checking on him, and that she talked to his dad, and, Gabriel still protects his father, too, so it's hard.
Okay. Okay, let's see see if we can try and wrap this up here quickly. So what about your knowledge of his threats towards others?
Richard doesn't have a very high opinion of anybody, and he would have no problem using or hurting anybody that he would need to get ahead. That being said, I don't know firsthand of any threats that he's made against anybody else.
Okay.
He has threatened my fiance as far as trying to destroy him the way that he's trying to destroy me. But the goal of that is so that my fiance will break up with me and throw me out, and I won't have him to turn to. So he's threatened his security clearance. His information is all over the website. My fiance's mother is on the website. Anybody that's close to me or knows me is at risk for what he will do.
Okay. Tell me about any stalking that he's done or anything like that.
When back in 2002, when I had Gabriel for the first 2-week visitation, we were supposed to trade off the child in the airport in Florida. And the night before the plane, the flight, Richard actually came to my house in a taxi and was trying to disable the car. We ran out, and he jumped in the taxi and drove away. But then we had to check the car, and the gas line was, or the gas, I don't know if it's the gas, the battery was unplugged. Looked like he was trying to do something with the brakes. And when we went to court later that same year, I was in the courtroom with the judge, and he was in the parking lot again trying to mess with the vehicle that I was in. Recently, he had a warrant in the state of Arizona, and so he wouldn't come into Arizona while he was in the country, at least not that I would know of.
Okay.
The stalking is not physical, but he's told me that he's hired a private detective to follow me. He monitors all of my public records. He digs up every kind of information, every piece of information you could possibly find on a person in the United States. Anytime anything happens, he has something trigger that he gets notification. I feel like I'm constantly being watched.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't do anything without him knowing.
Okay. The sorry to break back on something else. You talked about how he told Gabriel that he had sent a bunch of stuff to Liz.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. It was a phone call that they had, and afterwards Gabriel came out and said that his dad told him that he was shipping his stuff to Los Angeles with intention to move there. This was 2 months ago. I actually notified and sent an email to Constable DuPont when that happened.
And when he says items, did he describe anything in particular?
If he did, my son did not tell me. But Richard is very paranoid, and he believes that I'm recording the phone calls, and so he won't provide specific details like that over the phone.
Okay. And this was 2 months ago.
Yeah, roughly.
Do you still have the emails from when he texted or emailed everybody at the company?
Yeah, actually I do.
Okay. If we could get those, that would be great.
I can forward those.
Okay. So just for clarity, you may have already answered this, but has Richard ever threatened you in person or over the phone, like on
No,
a phone conversation?
we don't really talk over the phone.
Yeah. So from my understanding, most of the threats that you've received are from email or from this website, or
Yes.
by third person through Gabriel.
Yes.
Is there any other sources of threats or harassment that?
No. No. Again, most of this started once he was out of the country, since he's protected,
Okay.
and I have no cause for concern.
Okay. Has Gabriel ever told you about any weapons that Richard has?
Yeah.
What did
Yeah.
he tell
Every
you?
time Gabriel went up to go visit them, they went shooting. He would call and tell him about the new gun that he got, and just tell him about how it fired, and Richard would post on the Facebook page about them going to the gun shooting range and would show video of Gabriel shooting the guns. And he sent me an email one time and told me that he actually got Gabriel a firearm for his birthday, but he would keep it up in Canada with him. He wouldn't ship it down to me. Yeah. Gabriel has told me on a number of occasions that he has firearms at the house and that they go shooting all the time. This website has actually been forcibly taken down multiple times.
Who's
Been taken to the United States once. He was told to take it down in Canada. He has since moved it to Iceland. He keeps moving it so that he can keep it up. But this website has been a problem. More than one authority has indicated that this is not only harassment, but domestic violence and abuse.
okay? Okay. That's all I can think of right now. Is there anything else that you would like to say, or you have any other questions?
The only other thing that I want to say is that when the harassment case was brought before the Crown back last year, the Crown dismissed my case and said that I had no cause for concern or fear for my safety because I was in another country. And not only was he caught in the country, but he was caught in the country looking like he was moving, and the firearms are now missing. So I would just really like to have a little protection or notice from the Crown that maybe there is cause for me to be a bit concerned.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to conclude the recording. It's our time, 14:50 hours, 14:15.